create temptation. Adam and Eve were allowed to eat all the fruit they wanted except for the fruit from the tree of knowledge. The serpent tempted Eve to eat it, and she later tempted Adam to do the same. Like the serpent, you must awaken a strong desire in your target that they cannot control. Everyone has an unfulfilled desire. Find your targets and make them believe that you can lead them to it. Don Juan was walking through a park in Madrid when he saw a beautiful woman dressed in fancy clothes with a small child, both followed by a maid. She resembled a girl named Cristeta. Don Juan had seduced her and later abandoned her about 3 years back. He found it hard to believe that this woman could be the same person. From the looks of this woman, she was quite wealthy, and Cristeta was very poor. There's no way that her circumstances could have changed that much in such a short time, but he got closer and realized that it was Cristeta. He was surprised. Maybe the child was his. If he wasn't, she probably married immediately after he left Madrid. She used to be so in love with him. How did she manage to move on so quickly? Chances are that she married for money and didn't really love her husband. Who was her husband? Don Juan couldn't stop thinking of all the possibilities. He had to know the truth. He walked around that same park every day. She noticed him, but she pretended not to. To discover the truth, he followed the maid and began asking her about Cristeta. Who is her husband? She told him that his name was Mr. Martinez, but he wasn't in Madrid. He left on a business trip. Don Juan gave her a letter to give to Cristeta. He wanted to see her. He followed them all the way home and discovered that she lived in a huge palace. Who was this Mr. Martinez and how did she manage to get with such a rich man? She obviously married for money, so maybe she still loved him. Don Juan couldn't stop thinking about Cristeta. He had to meet with her. Unfortunately, she didn't want this. It was only after he began writing her daily that she agreed to see him. Just once. They were meeting at the park, and Don Juan had everything planned. He was going to seduce her once again. When he saw her coming, however, he thought she looked so beautiful, and he lost his cool. He loved her, and his neediness scared her away. She told him that she didn't love him anymore, but Don Juan could sense she was lying. She had feelings for him, even if she didn't want to admit it. He begged her to meet with him one more time, and although she didn't want to, she said yes. The second time they met, she told him that the child wasn't his, and the feelings he had for her weren't real. He only wanted her because he could not have her, but he denied this. He was a different man now. He would do anything for her. She was about to start crying, so she rested her head on his shoulder, but she quickly started to feel guilty and stood up. She told Don Juan that they would not meet again, not ever, and she left. Don Juan was devastated and decided to leave Madrid for good. The last thing he did was send Cristeta a goodbye note. To his surprise, she replied. She wanted to speak to him. They met at night, and she confessed her love for him. If he wanted to be with her, however, he would come to the palace where she lived, and take her away in front of her husband and everyone else. Despite the challenge, he had never been happier. When he arrived to the palace, he asked for Cristeta, and he was told to look for her in the back. When he got to her room, he noticed that she lived in really poor conditions. He was confused. He thought she was rich. Cristeta wanted to tell him the truth. She worked at the palace. She wasn't married to the owner. She wasn't married at all. She had no child. 3 years back, when he abandoned her, she was devastated. She wanted revenge and to get him back. A friend of hers told her that he was back in Madrid, so she took most of her earnings and bought expensive clothes to impress him. She borrowed the neighbor's child and asked her cousin to dress up as the maid. The entire plan was to make herself seem rich, married, and with a child in order to spark a fantasy in his head. She knew that Don Juan was interested in a woman that seemed unattainable. Making herself seem taken would attract him again, and this way she could get revenge. When Cristeta was done explaining everything, Don Juan understood her pain and forgave her. He asked her to marry him, but she said no. If she let him take her for granted once again, he would lose interest. Declining his offer was the only way to stay in control. Don Juan was only interested in women that he wasn't supposed to have, such as married women and virgins. After being abandoned by him, Cristeta wanted revenge and to get him back. If she could make him believe that she was taken, she could get both. She needed to become forbidden fruit once again. To successfully tempt someone, you must make them want you and later let them know you won't be easy to seduce. Be flirtatious and hard to get at the same time. Hint at something romantic, but make it clear that there are obstacles that are not allowing you to be with this person. Maybe you're with someone else, or the timing might not be the best. Chances are you aren't really that interested. Whatever the excuse, it will attract the other person. People are perversely excited about what they cannot or should not have. To seduce someone, you have to find something they lack and tempt them to come get it. Social media has made it harder to find people's weaknesses because no one wants to display them. They only show themselves having the time of their lives. Don't be fooled by this. It's fake. Human beings have insecurities, and they all have unfulfilled desires that maybe you can fulfill. And if you tempt them strongly enough, they will give in. Their weakness might be boredom, a repressed desire, or perhaps hunger for adventure. Find out more about your victim and you will eventually discover something that you may use to your advantage. Think of the apple in the Garden of Eden. The fruit looks deeply inviting, and you're not supposed to eat it. It's forbidden, but that is why you think of it day and night. You see it but cannot have it. The only way to get rid of this temptation is to give in and eat the fruit. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please leave a like and subscribe for more.